I don't know. You know what I
Hi,
think I
we're
forgot to do?
live. You did it
I think I
again.
forgot to play. I did it
Yay,
again. You
everyone,
know what?
we're live. We are
Hi, we're live.
live.
We're going now. Hold
Welcome, everybody, to Rad Pod and Chill. I'm Heidi Kuda. I'm here with Jim Stewartson and High Fidelity, who were banned long ago for the amazing work they do exposing the trauma merchants of disinformation. And so they ain't new to this. But
It's been
hi.
my thing. Been my thing.
Hi fi, hi fi. Where are we right now?
I would like to welcome all of our viewers to the live stream at the end of the universe. Woo. End of the Twitterverse, I should say. Yeah, it's going down.
This is going to be an amazing, amazing show. I'm going to have to warn everybody that I'm going to be retweeting the shit out of my Byline supplement piece on Musk that revealed how authoritarians often capture communication platforms to kill truth and to weaponize the platforms for nefarious purposes, particularly in information war. And Jim, you have been doing some robust reporting on this particular subject. What do you have to say? What's
I
up,
don't know, man.
Say the line, Jim. Say the line.
Jim?
I don't know what line. I'm having a hard time not feeling all sorts of Schadenfreude and bad feelings.
Yeah.
You know, it was always like this. It was always like this. It was craftier before. It's exactly the same shit. It's a bunch of capricious decisions. Now, before, the decision making, to be fair, was by a larger group of shitheads instead of just a single one. So it took longer for them to do shitheaded things, and they were generally more crafty about their shitheadedness. Elon Musk has none of these restrictions whatsoever, and so he's just like, I don't like you, I don't like you, and I don't like you, and it doesn't. Here's the thing. I'll say one more thing. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are the same person to this extent. Neither of them. They both have the amazing superpower of no shame.
It was
can get
only
their
about
ego.
10% booze.
That's different. They can get their they get little egos hurt all the time. That's a problem. But they have no shame at all. They don't feel any, because they don't have empathy for others. They have no way to tell what somebody else is going to think about them. So they don't give a shit. So they don't have any shame. So he can just, in one tweet, say, we have lots of new exciting doxing rules. And then in the next tweet, send a video of somebody and their license plate because they're a crazy stalker.
So
he has no more boundaries at all. People have been saying this for a long time. He's going to keep getting worse.
So I want to talk about all this stuff because it's really important. But first, I want to talk about fluff. My nails are already done and my room is clean, and I've not been able to say those two things in a sentence for about a year. So I just want to say, like, I have been enjoying writing full time right now, and I'm doing it from an uncluttered space, which is allowing me to do some of my best thinking. So I just needed to say that because I'm all about palate cleansers and gratitude. Now, Now that
that was the feng shui section of our.
I am so feng shuied. There's no shitheadedry going on here. But I do want to say,
High Five's got the incense going over there. That's not weed. That's incense.
I do want to say, Jim, as your friend and your colleague, it has been very traumatic for me to experience what it must have been like to lose voluminous amounts of work, of serious work and investigations in one fell swoop because you were targeted for the work that you do in bringing the news and the truth about this egregious information war. So what I know is that those people, even if they're back on tomorrow or they're taken out next week or the other week, they're going to be going through some serious trauma because we use these platforms to do our work. And these platforms have always been unsafe. But to all of a sudden have, everything pulled out from under you, please tell our viewers what that experience is like, because it's traumatic, even for your friend to be witnessing it.
Yeah, look, when you get used to, being in a flow of information with people, for a lot of your life, for, a year and a half.
Yeah.
And, dropped 45,000 different tweets and 8,000 different pieces of media and covered hundreds of events and blah, blah, blah. It is injury. It is an injury to a person, right? Because at that point, once you've gotten yourself literally attached, and this is not good, and I'm not proud of this, right? But there's a bit of human machine interface going on here after a while, right? I was used to Twitter and my library of 45,000 tweets and threads and all this stuff that I knew how to do instantly. I was really good at it, and whenever something happened, I could, do something quickly. And when that gets taken away from you for no reason at all, literally no reason, it's like somebody chopped your arm off and takes half the brain out of your head. It's like that. And, it still feels tragic to me that I don't have all that work, that, there's honestly some historic stuff in there.
Yeah.
And it sucks. And I feel bad for the people that this is happening to. And I hope, Elmo, I will finish that sentence.
My turn.
Thank you, Jim. It's important to acknowledge that there is an extreme loss, particularly for investigative, people with investigative
trauma. It is. It's an injury.
High five. High five.
It is now time to bring the technologist part of my training to bear. Because one of the things we do in technology is we make sure we have backups, right? And there's something called a 3-2-1 rule. And that's when you have 3 copies, 2 different mediums, and at least 1 off-site. So, yeah, people in the comments are talking about Thread Reader app. Actually, this gives me a good call to action. Heidi, I'd like you to do something. I'd like you to spend the next, 24, 48 hours, however long it takes, just retweet your power threads, the real monsters, the ones that really get to the goodness, right? And then I would like our viewers to go and grab those and start archiving them on the Wayback Machine so we have them. And then we'll, build a spreadsheet of what the links were so we can look them up on the archive.
Is my life's
work. Back up your stuff, people. That's what I'm saying.
This is my life's work. I took the most important work that I did and I put it into book form. That's It's Complicated Volume 1, but that only goes up to April of 2019. It stops with my very first thread, with my Mueller thread. If I did not have access to that material, if I didn't have access to all of that work, you know, as Jim talks about, that's like thousands and thousands and thousands of hours worth of work, because I know, as a lifelong investigative reporter, people don't read reports, they don't read indictments. Few people, I should say. And the Mueller report was a great example. I think they estimated maybe 3% of the population read it. So one night with a terrible cold, I just started, it was around Easter time, and I just started bite-sized pieces, a page or two at a time, and it ended up being my first 90 tweet thread. And I return to it all the time because the facts are there that we were and are the target nation of cyber warfare, a military attack on our country that actually had an impact on our presidential election and resulted in a Putin puppet becoming our president. And now, according to Fiona Hill, which is why I'm going to be retweeting the shit out of my most recent Byline Supplement article, we now have Elon using the platform to spread Russian propaganda on behalf of Putin. When he argued and did that tweet about weighing in on geopolitical, you know,
you wanted to give Crimea you wanted to give up Crimea.
Fiona Hill said that was clearly a message being passed for Putin. Michael McKay said he's clearly turning this into Vkontakte, you know, Russian propaganda under the guise of an American social media outlet. So I don't need to tell you this, but, you know, this is an act of war. And we've been in the trenches of this war for some time. And I am grateful that we have diversified. The platforms are, you know, they're what we have right now. But this is, you know,
they own all the platforms.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, listen.
Yeah. I don't even want to say the names for that reason, but yeah.
So look, I've been saying for a long time, as we all have, that we are at war. And the nice thing about, I mean, if you call it a nice thing, about some of the things that have been happening recently is that you can't, it's starting to become impossible to not think of it that way. And people, you know, I think when they see a guy literally just taking people off the board, right, because strategically he doesn't like them, right? There's no other way to look at what he's doing. To Keith Olbermann and the guy who just did an article about Elmo and QAnon and you know, the Elon Jet guy, this obvious, very specific things that he wants out of his information vacuum. There's no other way to look at that other than as an aggressive information warfare act. You can call it censorship, you can call it him being a bitchy billionaire if you want, but that's not what it is. It's literally information warfare, right? Yeah. Now, at the same time, you have Mike Flynn, who is on the other side, on the tippy end of the spear, doing a similar thing, which is putting this fucking book out, and I've been writing about it both on Mastodon and Substack. He just put this book out that's called The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare, and it is a very sophisticated combination of a psyop manual, a real one, like military psyop, combined with really, really pernicious propaganda. So he's weaving this very scary and oftentimes extremely manipulative shit with actual military army psyop techniques mixed in with ISIS techniques.
Well, that is a bit terrifying.
This fucking book on Amazon and on Barnes and Noble. And this is a nuclear fucking weapon. It's going to kill people. It's going to end up in manifestos. It tells people how to develop an in-group and an out-group in their cult. It tells people exactly how to traumatize somebody else. It tells people how to kill someone with psychological operations.
He should
literally
know.
In the book.
Yeah, he should know.
He's been doing this for his entire career. He's been doing it against American citizens since 2016. And maybe, just maybe, the billionaire who just let Mike Flynn's employee Tracy Diaz on the platform today, he just let Tracy Diaz, his employee, former Q-drop writer, on the platform today. Tracy Diaz, why? What the fuck? Why does she get to get back on the platform? That's interesting, right? These guys it's all the same fucking plan. Mike Flynn is getting the violence and the paramilitaries and the tippy end of the spear, and Elon Musk is softening up the rest of the fucking population. It's war. It's fucking information war, and we have to start talking about it like that. If we don't, we're just gonna, the fucking pot's gonna blow right over our heads.
So my great friend Hi-Fi has had me refine my act recently, and I no longer qualify it with information war. This is war. This is war. And the reason that I am using that mindset now is, and I'm going to be trying to wrap my head around this. I have been going back to my own archives and looking at the Prigozhin operation and looking at the Kremlin School of Bloggers, which I wrote about today, and going back 20 years and all the things that I was telling you guys about that I wanted to do. And there is just no longer a separation between Prigozhin with the Russian troll operation and Prigozhin with Wagner. This is war. This is our war. And the report that I'm going to be retweeting throughout this episode shows how it's been done before, how communication is what is weaponized before the first shot is fired, the first bomb is dropped, the first group of people are rounded up. And by the way, people are already being shot and they're already being rounded up. It's just happening in different pockets throughout the country. So we are already here.
Trigger warning. Scary visuals coming up, but I gotta share this because this is the most apt thing I've seen.
Why don't you tell us first beforehand?
Nope. This thing.
Okay, get rid of it. I don't want to see it.
It's so perfect.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
It's just AI cartoons idea.
Yeah, I know. I am the girl in the room who has not been desensitized by the interwebs, remember? So I have a different response to these things.
I'm the guy in the room who desensitized himself.
My newest investigation for Byline goes back to the 1800s, and I had to look at propaganda from that time, and I am I can't unsee it. And it's just like when we look back into the 30s and we see the propaganda that was being used in the 20s and 30s, it's like that. And it's like, I'm not as tough as you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well.
Hey, can we talk about the new head of the Catholic bishops thingy? Because somebody brought it up in chat. And the new head of the Catholic bishops thingy, he's already siding with the rich Knights of Malta Catholic Opus Dei crew. So that's gonna be fun. Keep an eye on the Catholics, kids.
I'm sorry, there's too many E's, and the Catholic-y, bishop-y.
Well, it was the Catholic.
Get back to me when you know there's things and things.
Okay, what was the thing that Vegano was the head of?
It's okay.
The Bishops Congress.
We can.
Congress of Bishops.
Hey, I know what I want to talk about. I know what I want to talk about.
What?
As we are, seeing what's happening on the front lines of the unsocial media aspect of this war, uh, there continue to be banks that are getting spotlighted, hit, and sanctioned for the roles that they play. And I don't think we can actually have those conversations separately. I don't think any of this happens without the banks willing to money launder for mafia states that then funnel the money, back out into the world that we are now, watching weaponized against everybody. So that I think is an important point.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? The transnational organized crime is weaponized the financial system to launder their money so they can pay for these services legitimately, or they use crypto or who knows what, or they do donations online. Like they talk about an American psyop, they're using like virtual credit cards. What? Yeah. But yeah, so here we have Danske Bank, which just pled guilty. They're going to hand over $2 billion, but $835 million is going to be handed out to other cases they're already involved in. So yeah, no corruption in the bank. It's just
hey, I want to talk about something for a second.
Sure.
If that's okay. Hang on a second. Okay. Here. Sure. Let's see if does this work. Does that work? Am I sharing?
Yes, you are. Well, I have you on a separate feed with that, but yes, you're sharing.
Okay, cool. So I ran into this theory. First of all, I know you didn't like that meme idea. It's okay. This guy is a good guy. His name is Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
I've been listening to Ultra, so I know exactly who he is. I've been listening to Maddow's podcast.
Yes, and he came, but the thing that he came up with that really spoke to me was his theory of stupidity. And I just
actually, yeah, that's right. I read this in your thing. That's right. I knew it looked
yeah.
Uh-huh.
I appreciate being compared to Maddow.
I knew I got it from one of you smarties.
But unfortunately, Dietrich, he was a pastor. He was a Lutheran pastor, and he died in a concentration camp because he was vehemently anti-Semitic, vehemently anti-Hitler, and spoke out against him, and ended up dying 2 weeks before his concentration camp was liberated. But while he was there, he came up with this theory of stupidity, and there's a really, really cool animated 6-minute piece about it. But I just wanted to read this because, I've always kind of fought against people who said, they're just stupid. Well, if you think about it in the way that Bonhoeffer, puts it, there's sort of, right? The impression one gains is not so much that stupidity is a congenital defect, but that under certain circumstances, people are made stupid or they allow this to happen to them. We note further that people who have isolated themselves from others or who live in solitude manifest this defect less frequently than individuals or groups of people inclined or condemned to sociability.
Wow.
And so it would seem that stupidity is perhaps less a psychological than a sociological problem, which I think it's both. Which he says, but here's the sort of the kicker. He said this in a concentration camp, right? In the absolute pit of fascism. Upon closer observation, it seems apparent that every strong upsurge of power in the public sphere, be it of a political or of a religious nature, infects a large part of humankind with stupidity. It would even seem that this is virtually a sociological, psychological law. The power of the one needs the stupidity of the other. And I'm adding my own corollary to that, which is those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities, right? If you can inflict people with stupidity, stupid people are much easier to be manipulated into genocide.
And this must be framed in terms of undue influence. So it's literally, to me, this is in terms of brainwashing. Your statement, Jim, from my report in Byline is, Twitter is now providing the largest on-ramp for brainwashing or coercive propaganda in history.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, it's always been that way, but here's what's happening, right? It's always been this sort of rotating vortex of radicalization, right? What Elmo is doing is cutting off all of the stuff on the outside and making it spin faster and faster and faster. So it will get smaller, but it's going to get more and more radical, and it's going to suck people into it that normally wouldn't be there, right? Part of what's so dangerous about what he's doing, like he took Mastodon's link. You can't say Mastodon anywhere on there anymore. He's trying to literally trap people into his echo chamber, right? So he's got 121.7 million followers alone at this point, right? And that number is not going down. Lots of people are leaving, but lots of people are getting sucked into his vortex, including people who just don't know any better, who aren't stupid, but are having stupidity inflicted upon them by this fucking monster who's saying shit like, my pronouns are prosecute Fauci.
Yes,
right?
Terrible. So
that's inflicting stupidity on people, on hundreds of millions of people.
Another way to say it.
Let us remember that Parler became a hotbed echo chamber of violence prior to January 6th. And if we remember how that turned out, this individual right here in a QAnon shirt will be sentenced shortly. And Parler was nowhere near as big as what Twitter is.
Right.
So even if a percentage of the people are infected with the brainworms that Elon is spreading, we have a problem. This is a national security issue.
That's the problem.
Elon Musk is he's a fucking problem.
he is, right? So yeah, you still have Telegram, right? And where all the real hardcore shit is going on. And now you've got this guy out here trying to suck up. If he can get 5%, right, of the country thinking more in his direction over the next 2 years, that could change history, right?
Well, that's all it takes. And I just talked to David Pepper about that. It takes very little to alter who can actually rule in perpetuity in your state, in your community. It takes very little. It takes very little voter suppression acts. And Jason Stanley talks about creating unreality and how fascism works. He talks about how none of this would work without conspiracy theories, because it's when people start to doubt what's in front of them and their own minds and what they see, that's when they can be manipulated to a certain end. So it's all part of the same, alarming story. And again, why we do the show and why we do this reporting is because this has been real and this has been ongoing. And I would think people might be waking up to it. They might be waking up to the fact that they have been manipulated in a war for many years and that there are no rear areas in this war.
No, you'd think, but the other side is actively trying to wake people up the other way, right? And you know, I was thinking about this, right? We have this dichotomy between woke and awakened, which is, you know, what happens when you're awakened, right? You have an external force who comes into your life and changes your your consciousness from one thing to another. External force comes in, you were sleeping, now you're awake, right? That is what they're trying to do. They are trying to be that external force that comes in and forces a change in your consciousness, as opposed to woke, which is a state of being, a state of knowing, a state of you know, having already, you know, been through either, you know, waking up or learning. And I was always trying to figure out what's the difference between these two things. One is basically encapsulates a form of authoritarianism, right, in a sense, because you have something else who's making you wake up, as opposed to you getting there however you want to get there.
Well, I do know that the biggest ruse played on, you know, mild-mannered Americans was somehow getting poor people to care about rich people's taxes. And this is all tied together. My friend Keir Giles has a new book coming out in January called Russia's War on Everybody. He is a geopolitical analyst. He's the guy who wrote the NATO report in 2016, which revealed all the techniques that have been used against us, and which I just wrote about yesterday. He wrote a report for NATO, you know, the handbook to, you know, Russian warfare, cyber warfare. That's not the title, but it's in my blog. So, and what was really frustrating for me about revisiting that is this came out in November of 2016. The Guardian report from inside the IRA came out in 2015. In 2012, Anonymous hacked into Russian bloggers showing that they were, you know, putting out all this disinformation. You know, in 2009, you know, they created the Kremlin School of Bloggers, and back in, you know, 2000, they started targeting their own people. So who's protecting us? Why does it have to be us? Where are our guardians looking after our, you know, our psychological borders? Like, where are they, you know, to help us deflect this digital poison that's coming our way all the time?
The reason why we don't have that from a practical point of view is that the United States does not have a standing army that is supposed to take actions inside the country, right? And the problem with this whole thing, and the reason it's so fucking pernicious, is that it's co-opting American minds to do foreign actions.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you can't have the army running psyops. I mean, you're not supposed to have the army or the CIA running psyops on American citizens.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to do that. They do it anyway, you know, or have in the past, but not at this sort of scale that would be required here.
Right.
Which is why I've been saying, guys, we got to get organized ourselves. We got to fucking do this ourselves. No one's coming to our rescue, and you know, we're gonna have to fight for this ourselves. It doesn't mean that here's the thing that we do need to do in terms is get them to do their fucking job. I just want to point out one thing. The little schlub Sam Bankman, the little hobbit motherfucker who stole $16 billion from people. It
FDX,
took 2 weeks. It took 2 weeks to lock that little piece of shit up, to go to fucking Bahamas, pick him up, just like decipher a very complicated fucking economic crime, all this fucking shit. It took 2 weeks to arrest that little motherfucker.
Yeah.
Mike Flynn and Donald Trump and their parade of horribles did this shit 2 years ago. Why the fuck aren't they in prison? Don't tell me anymore about how it takes so long for the Justice Department. I do not give a shit. If somebody loses money, all of a sudden the little motherfucker's in jail right away. There's no difference. The only difference is who's mad and who's protecting whom. And I'm fucking tired of it.
I don't know why. I don't have an answer for you.
Let's talk.
I have a data point for you. You know,
warning, trigger warning. Jesus Christ.
Major trigger warning.
These three young men, look, I see people like this all the time, man. I live in Ohio. Anyway, these three young men were sentenced, 12 and 7 years and some other stuff. But nobody talks about EXE Intel and, FBI special agent.
No one's going to, because
So
we're just letting it happen. We've got little whitey bulgers all over the country.
I agree. I agree.
And
I agree.
Like, what is going on?
Well, we saw.
I mean, we got all sorts of fuckery, but right now we got
a lot.
We also have to deal with
Flynn out there.
We have to deal with the radicalization from within. We saw Kevin Hall's report from OCCRP yesterday about the leaked Oath Keepers roster.
I was going to use that,
including members of our government. So that is something that we have to deal with. We don't peddle dystopia here. Like, there's always solutions. We always have solutions. We have the simple solution of, shutting down Telegram. We have a simple solution of turning Twitter into something akin to a utility. Everything has a solution. Arresting Donald Trump for his myriad, crimes, calling, Michael Flynn up. His own generals have asked the military to call him back up to active duty so he can be prosecuted for his role in stirring up, violence and, civil war rhetoric. And, rather than rewarding somebody like Roger Stone, who was at the center of our insurrection with his Twitter back, how about, serious prosecutions? There's so many things, pardon fraud, the list just keeps going. So all this stuff that seems so daunting does have solutions while we are still a free country, but they have to happen fast. We're about to go into a couple of years of a Republican controlled House. I would urge our politicians right now to pass some voter protections before that happens, so we actually have an opportunity to continue to have a democracy. Because if we continue to allow, the voter suppression to happen the way it's happening in the gerrymandering, we are, we're in.
How are we going to do that with the Republican House? That's not going to happen.
Because it's not yet. We still have a couple weeks, right? Couldn't they do something, some kind of emergency, I mean, come on, isn't there something worth fighting for right now?
I couldn't agree more. The reality is it's not going to happen.
So, yeah.
Wow. Sorry. My brain went really dark on that one, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Don't.
But I would point out that there are a lot of rich people who are supposed to be representing the vast majority of us. And guess what? They're rich. And who do the rich side with when it comes to the fascists? Well, they seem to side with the fascists.
Well, I wrote about that. We learned that from Jason Stanley. We learned that the business elites tend to side with the authoritarians because of all of the promises. The promise to go after labor, the promise to make sure the taxes are low and the regulations are removed. And that's no world. That's no world for anyone to live in. We need regulations so we have clean water and clean air and hope for the future. And,
Well,
you know,
the biggest fascists in the world right now are the richest people in the world. That's not a coincidence at all, right?
Nope.
Vladimir Putin, biggest fascist on the planet. Fucking Elon Musk, proving to be the other biggest fascist on the planet. I mean, there's no other way to look at what he's doing, right? It's just straight up, censorship in the project of fascism, of removing people's rights and privileges in favor of the wealthy. As I'm getting older, I'm getting more and more sick of capitalism. I got to tell you, that's a whole different show. But Jesus Christ,
Paul Mason wrote about that.
Have you read The Triumph of Bread?
I'm turning into fucking straight.
Well, I have a solution, and Heidi and I were supposed to discuss that solution tonight after the show.
Okay.
Yes, well, we still can.
Good for you. That would be great.
I do. We talked with Nancy McLean.
I'm a solutions architect. This is what I do.
Deep structural reforms are necessary. We know that. Guardrails are necessary. Paul Mason talked about, in order to deal with climate issues, that we will need such a restructuring that we won't actually recognize it as capitalism anymore. He wrote a very brilliant, thoughtful piece about that. I'm all about solutions. Like, in the very early 90s, probably 1991, I interviewed Jello Biafra, and he was just like, everybody can complain and everybody can, bitch and moan, but how many people spend half a day trying to solve a problem? And I've always taken that to heart. I've always spent that half a day trying to solve a problem. I don't like it just to linger and just to be part of the complaining set. And many of the things that we discuss have solutions.
If you don't know, Jello Biafra is the lead singer of the Dead Kennedys, a punk rock band.
Fresh fruit for rotting vegetables.
Too drunk to fuck.
Also a classic. Absolutely.
Holiday in Cambodia. Another classic.
It's a holiday in Cambodia. Other people.
We were going to write a book together at one point. That was one of the people I was going to write a book with at one point. But the first time I interviewed him,
I got very excited by it.
He's great.
Yeah, that's Jello.
I ran into him at the Rock Against Bush tour, the punk voter tour, and I was working for a local Fox affiliate at the time. And he's like, "How could you work for Fox?" I said, "All I know is I do good work." And at the time, I felt that I did. And when I didn't, and when I no longer could, I left. I resigned. But he's interesting. We were talking at the time. We were talking about how it was the height of Guns N' Roses. Ride, and he was talking about how the record labels, it's in their best interest to keep everybody, drunk and stupid, as we were talking about, as opposed to, sober and clear-headed, so they can make sure the contract they're signing actually looks after them. And boy, is that true.
I have a thought. We should see what Jello's up to. See if he wants to come on the show.
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
I'm a fan of Jello.
Sure he would. Yeah, he's really amazing. Yeah,
I'll
ask him. I'll ask him. So,
is he like
Jello? We're asking you right now. Come on the show, man.
What's that?
Is he like 85 years old, something like that now?
No.
Jello's not that old.
No, but it is weird.
He's like a decade older than me.
It's weird when you do start to kind of do the math, because you're like, oh my God, like that's why I had to stop everything I was doing.
You got to start making those calculations. Like, oh shit, is that person going to be able to?
Well, yeah. I remember the first time I was at a Halloween show with the Cramps, and it was the first time that Lex Interior could not get back up after he'd done the splits. At some point that does happen. But still rad though. But that's why I had to stop everything I was doing. I was in Monument Valley working on something else, and when I found out Bob Dylan was turning 80, I had to stop everything, and I wrote one of my favorite pieces in recent years. I do want to talk to you guys about my None of Us Demons post. because we talk so much about all of this and it is so brutal, but I also try to detach in nature. I'm a birder. I like to go to, cactus gardens and whatever. But I wrote this whole allegory when I was in Arizona in 2019. I watched a tarantula hawk wasp, which had already stung a tarantula. It paralyzes the tarantula. The whole point of it is so it can lay an egg. The egg turns into larvae, and as the tarantula is dying, as the wasp babies are birthed, they have something to eat, which is the tarantula. So I know it's really gnarly. I found it morbidly fascinating, but that's what led me to write that war fighting thread on the NATO report, because I feel like America is that tarantula. We've been stung, we've been paralyzed, and if we don't come out of it, we will not have our country left. And that is the urgency of it. So we are aware of what has happened to us. It's happening to us in real time. We are seeing it happen on Twitter. We are hearing our neighbors talking, conspiracy theory, psycho rhetoric. It's happened. We need our decent president to, announce the war, mobilize people like Stephen Hassan and massive groups of Stephen Hassans to go out and start helping people and start bringing them back and start giving them literacy against this stuff. I don't want to keep losing, people that I love. I'm not the only person who's lost family members to conspiratorial thinking. Jim, you said you went back to Facebook after you first started evaluating what was happening with QAnon, and it was invasion of the body snatchers.
Yeah, look, but the problem is that people can't. I mean, as we've talked about, I did a whole thing trying to help people. Well, while Elon Musk is brain fucking 200 million people at a time, no amount of Stevens, as brilliant as he is, are going to do a thing.
But if they had a giant platform too,
we have to shut this shit down. We gotta get the banana ball psyop agents who are intentionally brainwashing people in front of us and just lying their ass off over and over again in front of us to intentionally indoctrinate them into a death cult. All the advice about how to talk to a cult member isn't going to do shit, unfortunately.
Well, and the sad thing is we learned that we have to bring people back one at a time. But if somebody like Stephen Hassan had a big enough reach, and if he was given the resources, and people, I know from people that I talk to, they get tired of living like this. They get tired of losing their friends and being defiant, and they don't really know what to do about it, because they also don't want to admit that they were wrong, because that causes them a lot of pain.
Here's the thing: if you took somebody out of pick a cult compound, Jonestown, take them somewhere and just get them away from the fucking cult for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, they're just gonna go like, Jesus Christ, what the hell? Just whoa.
Yeah.
Right? Like a lot of it is the environment that you're in.
Yeah.
Constantly reinforces the cult doctrine.
That's right.
Whether you're in Waco in a compound with the other Branch Davidians, or in Jonestown, or in Heaven's Gate, right? They had to keep you in a confined place in order to keep you brainwashed, right? And we have the same thing. They're called social media sites. It's called Telegram, but fucking Twitter at this point. Unless we put an end to that, no amount of Stevens are going to help, because the cult has the upper hand.
Right.
But if you do, the thing is, it's not one at a time. I'm telling you, if I had like the big console in the sky, and I could just shut off a bunch of shitty social media sites real quick. Just a test, just a wee test. Just like 2 days. Temperature come way down right away. People would suddenly figure out that, yeah, outside exists.
Yeah.
You know, oh shit, I used to like to play video games. I wasn't always this weird, like drooling fascist. What the fuck?
Did you say that just a few months ago you were saying that you felt like the temperature was starting to come down organically, and that started to be like a shrinking cult for Flynn, a shrinking cult for Trump, and has that now expanded again with Elon Musk at the helm of Twitter?
Well, yes, I said that, but I also said I think that it was a temporary lull in the storm. I did not know, Elmo was going to go this crazy, this fast. I knew it was going to happen.
But I think it's Putin's desperation.
But he went.
That's okay.
I think it's Putin's desperation, though. He's calling in his made men to do crazy stuff. You've got oligarchs selling mansions. He's got to fund this war somehow. He's got Elon at the helm of, the biggest communication platform, certainly in this country, used to, move news in this country. So I feel like this could be, is this really actually an act of weakness?
I would like to point something out. I would like to point two somethings out to our viewers. The first something is the financial status of Twitter with regards to the number of layoffs that have occurred, right? The number of bills that are going unpaid with Twitter, right? So their costs are way down. Except we just find out that Elno is dumping Tesla stock to the tune of billions with a B.
Okay,
dollars. Where's that money going? Where is it? Where is it? I'd like to know.
Well, and we do have evidence that some of the oligarchs are, selling mansions. It's not unusual to sell a mansion or to move a yacht. Obviously, the sanctions are probably hurting a lot of people. But I do think that if we were to zoom out, this could be because the war effort is costing a lot of money. The sanctions are probably hurting. And perhaps this is the time that you make all your made men do overt acts that could ultimately maybe lead to trials and prosecutions in The Hague. Maybe that's...
Yeah, look, it's not even The Hague so much. Look, Flynn and these guys are doing it out of self-preservation.
Okay, good, great.
Look, in any democratic world, right? Any outcome that involves some sort of remaining democracy, there's no fucking way that Mike Flynn is going to be able to escape forever. The amount of just crimes and treason that dude has done it will catch up with him if we have a justice system at all, and that's the question, right? Are we going to have a justice system? That's
what we need to know. That's what we need to know. We need to know if we are still a country with rule of law. That's what we need to know. That's what we need to know.
Well, we know that Jack Smith has another...
If you can pick up that little fucking hobbit after 2 weeks, you can pick up Rudy Giuliani, Mike Flynn, Roger Stone, Eric Prince, Steve Bannon, and the rest of these motherfuckers who are doing crimes in public.
Yes, they're doing it out in the open.
Can we talk about the fact that Giuliani today, we got him on at least one ethics violation. Okay, cool. But during his disciplinary hearing today, he went full QAnon with the stop the steal rhetoric we to this day believe that the election was stolen, and then he went into and now we're being victimized for our beliefs.
Right.
And he's trying to play legal tech. Yeah. And here's the thing that Pat Fox.
So the big lie is religion now?
Oh yeah. Yeah. But here's
the
thing that.
What did you say? Hold on. I can't understand. What are you saying?
Here's the thing that Mr. Fox needs to say, the man who is running this, is that Rudy Giuliani weaponized his law license to attack the very foundations of the democracy and the Constitution that he swore to uphold. This is not political. This is war, and he is an agent in that war. And if we do not remove his ability to be a weapon, he will continue. That's not hard.
Word.
He's been a fucking Russian mafia boss for 60 fucking years.
Thank
Literally. You. He's been running Kremlin propaganda operations forever. Like broken windows, all that shit, the Manhattan Institute, it's all anti-democratic psychological operations. He's been part of it since the 80s.
And I would ask people to read Craig Unger's books if they would like to get more information on that, because it's very well documented, both Craig Unger and Wayne Barrett. Yeah, so I mean, I'm just going to keep reporting. I don't know what else to do. I know that
I'm going to toot through it.
I know you're going to toot through it. Yeah. So for everybody, we are all on Mastodon, even Hi-Fi, who managed to get himself in a situation. We're all on Mastodon. I'm at Heidi Kuda at Toad Social, Hi-Fi at Toad Social, Jim Stewartson at Toad Social. Jim and I also have our Substacks. Mine is going gangbusters. I want to thank everybody. A lot of our viewers and my readers followed me over there, and I want to thank you so much. It's giving me so much hope.
Who says gangbusters anymore?
Giving me so much hope.
Bully.
I'm corny. I'm corny.
I'm gangbusters out here at the Substack, see?
I'm the girl who
23 skinny, my kids.
I'm the girl who says gee whiz, you know. I've always got some movie from the 30s and some French film from the 70s queued up. So I do want to just spend a minute or three geeking out over American psyop. Please watch our interview with Jack A. Bryan. I think it was maybe 2 episodes ago, where we talk about his incredible podcast where he interviews Wes Clark Jr., who you just you like the guy so much, you know, gets into things for the right reasons. But I have listened to episode 5 and 6 like so many times. I just keep listening to it back to back. I literally begged those guys to let me to leak me episode 7. I'm like, I'm media. Can't you give me an advanced copy? Clearly, I'm jonesing for the next episode. It's freaking fascinating. If anybody doesn't know, Standing Rock, was infiltrated like many things, or may have been, and from the beginning. This is still something that's unfolding. But boy, wow.
Yeah, look, it is very, very instructive for a whole lot of different reasons.
What we're talking about tonight, yeah.
It gets into a lot of the theosophy and I am stuff that I've talked about, because a lot of those sorts of techniques and memes were used in sort of his program to make him crazy, and just the entire project of targeting someone and literally making them crazy.
Yeah.
Is real. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And explains hi-fi if you want to see what happens.
One thing I want to say.
But I'm very, very good at what I do.
One thing I wanted to say when Wes, this is not really a spoiler alert, but it certainly is something that is worth being on the lookout for. When he gets to Standing Rock and he's, mobilizing all these veterans to stand beside the Native Americans, he did look around and realize there was a disproportionate number of veterans there with Russian wives or girlfriends.
Oh, it's shocking.
Shocking. Actually, you want to know something? You want to know something funny? You want to know something funny? Is when I first heard this name, I sat like straight up because the name I heard in that podcast animated a video for me for one of my poems.
Tentacles are everywhere. Yeah, I had the same.
I got stories.
We got stories. We got stories.
I'm from LA, so I know some of those people.
The last thing I want to say, and
interesting.
This is something we will be picking up with our guest on Sunday. I'm very excited. The show that's going to be released on Monday features a guest that's really going to tell us what's been happening at the border. But he talks about how so many of the, operatives simply replicated the war on terror operations against Americans. Is that something that we are living through right now? That is my question to everybody. Love you guys. More shall be revealed, and we'll see everybody in a few days.
Oh, you know what? I want to end with something because they're talking about Ye and Baked Alaska in the
chat.
In the chat. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna do this.
What's your nugget?
Oh yes. Oh. Our Easter egg.
I'm all for nuggies.
Okay, yep. So I mentioned that when actually my business partner Marley, when she spoke to Wes in 2017, I first heard a story. The first time within hearing the story where I was like, nope, this is bullshit, was because I thought it was completely unbelievable that a certain popular rapper would be hanging out with a bizarre right-wing network and talking about running for president.
Yeah, okay, beautiful. Thank you. That was really important.
Whoa, shit.
Yeah.